Welcome to the Liberty Show. I'm Manuel Carlos with Anti-Oligarchy.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, good evening, Auntie. Hey, we have a special guest tonight.
Yeah.
Debbie Bacigalupi. She is the senior news editor over at Technocracy News and a fifth-generation rancher, or is it sixth generation?
Well, some are in there. You know, that's debatable, but nonetheless, yes, at least 5 generations here in California for ranching, farming family.
Okay, great. Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us on the Liberty Show.
Thank you for having me.
Can you tell us more about yourself, your background, and
Sure.
what you do at Technocracy News, and how you got into that position, and some of your background as far as with you're an expert on Agenda 21. I'll just let you take it from there.
Sure. Well, I am senior editor of Technocracy.news, and I believe Patrick Wood, who's a friend of ours and a great researcher, invited me to join him in the declaring war on technocracy because of my extensive research. So I would not call myself an expert on Agenda 21 and the 2030 Agenda and the new urban agenda, but I would say that I have a passionate soul for the truth and knowing the truth, and I truly believe that people deserve the truth so that they can properly plan their future. I think that lying to people, manipulating, coercing them, even into these movements like smart cities that we're going to talk about today, is a complete, I think it's the worst thing that you could do is lie to someone, have people plan their future based on, you know, lies and misinformation. So as a passionate soul for the truth, I started researching, and I pretty much dumped my career, which I got my master's in business. I was a certified sommelier, which means I know a little bit about wine, but I was also a certified meeting professional. My last big job was at Google. And then I ran for Congress in 2012 because I wanted to root out the truth and let people know what was happening here in the San Francisco Bay Area, which is where I currently reside, on something very similar to what you're experiencing in Bend, Indiana, which is these smart growths, these smart cities, this movement. So I'm just really a nobody who loves the truth and has spent the last, I guess, 5, 6, 7 years trying to research, find out what truly is the truth, to know where we're going, so that I can be, I guess, a modern-day Paul Revere and alert everyone as to this is the direction we're heading in, which is the new urban agenda, the 2030 agenda, Agenda 21, sustainable development. And unless you like this plan, you should, which you won't know if you like it or not unless you know about it, but I guess if we all like it together, then I guess this is the way we should be moving. But I guarantee no one, hardly anyone, is going to like this plan when it all rolls out and is, we're experiencing what it is to live life in the 21st century based on sustainable development and technocracy.
Well, like we spoke earlier, Debbie, that we wanted to bring a little bit of a local spin on it, what's going on here in South Bend. We're on... This will show on the internet, but we also have a public access show here in South Bend. And so a lot of the residents here, South Bend has become a smart city that's been receiving federal funding, and it's all happened under the Mayor Pete Buttigieg, I'm not sure how to say it. But,
sounds worse than Bacigalupi.
But
bing, bada boom.
Yeah. And he's a young guy, and I think he got in. He really had no experience. I don't think at anything. He's a Rhodes Scholar. That may ring or set off some alarms for some people if they kind of understand that whole program with the Rhodes Scholarship and what that was intended for with world government. But anyway, here in South Bend, a lot of people are upset about what's happening with the smart streets. Roundabouts. In downtown South Bend, it used to be we would have 3 lanes going south through town and one way and 3 lanes going north. And now in the downtown area, they've put those into 2 lanes, put roundabouts in town. There's bike lanes.
Yeah.
So in South Bend,
In the middle of a blizzard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. It's not too, especially today with the way the weather was.
It was awful.
Then we have an airport that they made from a regional to a international airport, and at the same time they've made the roads going to that airport 2-lane with bike paths instead of 4-lane how it was. And I've never seen one person ride a bike to the airport yet, but it seems to be there's this. They want to eliminate car traffic.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, Andrew, you have some things to add as far as what you've seen
Well,
happening in South Bend.
I happen to work downtown, and all of this is taking place, which, under the guise of we're going to bring business to downtown again. Right?
Sure.
Even though way back, I think it was in the 70s, they had, at one point, the streets were already two-way streets.
Right.
Instead of all the lanes going one way and then, whatever. And they switched them all to one-way streets because of the same reason.
Right.
They listed, well, it'll bring business to downtown, and yet it still didn't bring any business. So when they trot out that same propaganda that, oh yes, we're going to bring business, and everyone who was alive in the 70s, at least knows that that's junk, that's lies. So,
Yeah.
and it's impossible, though, especially in the deep snow that we have right now. It's awful. You can't. The plowing's awful. You don't know where the curbs are now. You can't pass. It's awful. And the roundabouts, don't get me started with those. That's just like you put a little ice on that.
Yeah.
And you have people flying off
all over, like a record,
And when I start researching, and you'll tell us more about this because you're more familiar, but I start researching this, and there's more to the smart cities than just how they're directing the traffic. There's spy grids, and they want to monitor everybody, and they want to, it's under the guise of, well, they're going to be fighting crime. Of course, they could pass a law that we're all criminals.
For safety, yeah, it's all under safety, right?
Right.
Not safe streets, right?
Yeah, it's safe streets, and it's smart, and it's sustainable. But here in South Bend, a lot of people they're upset with it. They don't like what's going on in South Bend. But it's really a bigger issue than the mayor. The mayor's just implementing it.
Sure.
He didn't dream this up, did he? I mean, this is coming from.
Absolutely. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
No. And if your mayor is going around as if he did dream up, this utopia, this smart utopia, I mean, I would think that people would be turned off immediately, especially knowing he's a young guy, and just question, what he's saying. If he's coming up with, I'm come up with this idea. Really? Because I just sent you a document, and maybe you'll be able to share that with your viewers on what has been happening here in the San Francisco Bay Area, where we are the only official regional area or official region in the United States of America. And I promise you guys that what is happening here looks very similar to what's happening in South Bend, Indiana.
And to be fair to Mayor Pete, I don't think he said all along that there's federal funds for this, and he's acknowledged that this is coming from the White House. But I think a lot of people here locally, they don't understand where this is coming from.
Yeah.
I mean, they see it, whoever the face is of it that's implementing it, but I don't think they understand what's really behind it. And maybe you can explain that to us, how this all fits in with,
Sure.
The regional cities is another thing that they've been bringing up. They want to make regional cities up here in laws, and so maybe you can, I'll just kind of let you go from here because you know more about this and your experiences there in San Francisco.
Yeah, and if you see me looking down, it's because I'm on my laptop, and I am just going to possibly look up a few things about South Bend that might ring, and your viewers should be doing this too. So I'm just typing in South Bend, Indiana, and smart growth. Are you hearing the term smart growth around?
Yeah.
I mean, smart cities, but that's also part of smart growth. It's also part of sustainable communities. All of these terms that came from the United Nations and their report, Our Common Future. The word to think about there, the word to drive home is the word common. If you look, common, okay, so I'm guessing, and I've never been to South Bend, Indiana. I don't even know if I've ever been to Indiana, but I'm guessing that a lot of your malls are starting to look the same, having the same shops, like maybe Target, Barnes & Noble, Petco, Walmart. Let's see, what are some other popular ones? Bed Bath & Beyond. Are you seeing a lot of these everywhere?
Yes.
So when you have those kind of stores everywhere, you don't need to travel very far, right, to get what you need, because we're seeing this blanket, this one-size-fits-all plan going everywhere across the United States. Now, those are shops that I could go right down the street, just down the hill, hop in my car or my bike or walk and find these shops, right? Or I could go to the next city over, which is just a few miles down the road, and find these same shops. So if these same shops are everywhere, and we're only given these same shops everywhere, in other words, the mom and pops are being pushed out, right? We're not seeing mom and pop. We're not seeing the unique communities that we would say, oh, that's my home. I live in this city called San Carlos, and it's so cute because it has these cute little shops and this cute little road. Those things are going away. Everything is starting to look the same. And when everything starts to look the same in a world based on global warming, climate change, and sustainable development, they do not want us using our own transportation. They do not want us traveling, because traveling requires resources. Traveling requires gas, fossil fuel, using tires, using resources that came from the environment that our government, the White House, the United Nations are saying that all these resources are limited and finite, that human beings use to live, our extravagant lifestyles, right? Because we live extravagant lifestyles, and we need to just live within our basic needs, is what they're telling, based on global warming and climate change. So the Rouge, you had Lord Christopher Monckton on your show last week. He talked about climate change, he talked about global warming, and all the lies that are being told, which there are countless numbers. So why is it that they need to drive home this narrative that because human beings living and the way we live on planet Earth is causing such degradation, such biodiversity loss, that it's causing, global warming and greenhouse gases, and cows farting and burping are causing greenhouse gases, and yet we require cows to live our basic lifestyle, whether it's leather in your furniture, leather in your car. Livestock also provide asphalt, tires, insulation, sheetrock, what you use in your cars. So the lubricants, that's the word I was looking for. Lubricants that run your car and round out the ball bearings in your car, and for the landing strips on an airplane, on airplane tires, the retractable tires, that's livestock byproduct, using all these different things. And yet livestock and fossil fuel, which you can find, and carbon dioxide, which you can find in all products, almost all products. We use them daily. Like right now, I am using livestock byproduct by lifting up this book, and petroleum, because this is a plastic cover on this Global Biodiversity Assessment Report by the United States. This is my crook book. I call it the crook book, because in here is everything that is unsustainable in the 21st century, based on biodiversity, based on human beings living on planet Earth, this is what they're using to plan for smart cities and smart growth. Here's the Global Biodiversity Summary for policymakers. This is the 2011 version of this document, which goes in to say that unless we reduce our carbon footprint and we live in stack and pack housing, where we walk, we bike, and we take public transportation everywhere we go. We reduce our energy, which is why you have the roundabouts now that you drive around, because it's to reduce our energy consumption. It's to reduce our our usage of natural resources, whether it's minerals used on, like on your smartphone, or petroleum that's used for your smartphone. All these things that we need to live life come from the earth. And their whole story, narrative, is that we human beings, because of the way we live our life, we live in sprawled. I don't know what outside of South Bend, Indiana looks like. I'd be curious to hear what's happening in rural South Bend, Indiana area. My guess is there's probably regulations on farmers and ranchers. There's water regulations. There's endangered species regulations. If you've got a forest around there, they're putting a moratorium on how much timber you can cut. If there's dredge mining around there or mining, they're trying to stop that. Anything that happens out in rural America, like my parents are cattle ranchers, so we see this firsthand going on. It's the nudging of people out of rural America to the point where their goal is by the year 2050, the majority of the world's population, over 70%, I think it's even higher than that. I think it's like they're hoping for 90% of all people live in a urban city center, in a mega city, in a mega region, where the vertical sprawl, where you live, vertically and horizontally, is the thing of the past, and horizontal sprawl is reserved for wildlife, plants, trees, fauna, flora, and all these radical environmentalists who have as their playground and backyard, as you and I, we walk, we bike, we take public transportation in our smart cities, in our smart cars, with our smartphones, so that we can be smart global citizens. Oh, joy! Yay! Woohoo! Can't wait! And then how do you have citizens behave? You monitor, control. Excuse me, my dog. You monitor, here he is. You monitor and control, everything that human beings do to make us, be good global citizens. And we're seeing this happen in China now. I don't know if you've heard of what China's doing. It's something about a good global citizen or something like that. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, they've got a game out. We did a show on that several months ago, where they're going to grade you. They're making a game out of it, and you're going to lose credits if you say the wrong things or if you associate with the wrong people and things.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's tied into the whole social media, internet. This whole Internet of Things, which I'm quoting. Yeah, that just wow. And it's awful.
Smart man.
But yeah. It's scary because now, not only is it supposedly under the guise of environmentalism gone amok, but it's also under the guise of, well, this gives us the right to just spy on you completely and control your movement. I'm used to freedom of movement.
Right.
And to have these roundabouts thrown up, when I go from my home to work, I tackle at least 3 roundabouts. That's crazy. I don't need 3 roundabouts, and especially when we have a system that was already in place that they claim they're rebuilding, right?
Yeah.
The infrastructure, we're going to utilize the existing infrastructure. Well, that's a load, because there's nothing that they used of the old materials.
Right.
How is that environmentally sound?
Well, and some people might say, what's wrong with some of this? And I agree. There's a roundabout here and there. I mean, they're kind of pretty, right? And you're constantly moving, but whatever. But, it's the big picture that people don't have. Yeah. That is the scary picture. A little thing here and there, I think, is okay. And if people want to live that way, not be forced into it. And I've seen a lot more roundabouts coming up. And in the Bay Area, they're just simply, for the most part, not going to work. We have too many people here, too much traffic. there's no way, although they'll try, these people will try, because their vision is this utopia that looks much like the EU, where everybody's one, there's one currency, there's one of everything, and that we are, according to them, softer on planet Earth, yet if you look at their lifestyles like Al Gore and Leonardo DiCaprio and Obama, and it is not about saving planet Earth. It's not. It's about living high on the hog and telling everybody else how they should live, where they should live, what they should drive, that you should work within 5 to 10 minutes of where you play, where you recreate, where you sleep, and where you and where you shop. So everything should be 5 to 10 minutes of where you live in this new utopia. I'm looking at Smart Growth Move to South Bend blog. So you have a Smart Growth blog, and there's a complete streets in 2015 Smart Growth America. You can look up smartgrowthamerica.org, complete streets, and it says South Bend, Indiana officially adopted a complete streets policy last week at a Board of Public Works meeting, which means you are full on smart growth, sustainable development. You are marching to the orders of Agenda 21, sustainable development for the 21st century, no doubt. I mean, it just goes on and on. I'm sure that you're also seeing things called LEED buildings, LEED buildings. Let's see, where's Mishawaka?
Oh, Mishawaka, that's a city that's right next to South Bend.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have growth of smart temps in Mishawaka. Let me tell you guys, anything smart, be suspicious.
Yeah. Well,
Be
we are.
suspicious. Okay, here's another word, comprehensive plan. Now, if you looked at for South Bend and St. Joseph County, if you looked at your comprehensive plans, which that's what they call them now, comprehensive plans, you will see that your comprehensive plan probably matches the comprehensive plans, for example, in my city of San Carlos. This is not being unique, South Bend. This is not about being unique, San Carlos. This is about a one-size-fits-all to push us into higher and higher density living situations, more and more people moving into the cities. That's why they need to make the cities a hub for business, so that people want to go into the cities, so people have a need to go into the cities, which then justifies their smart growth planning and their smart growth building. And then they say, then you're going to see people moving into the mixed-use space, which is, a shop down below with apartment buildings above. That's great if you want to live that lifestyle. But when you are forcing people, like we did in the Bay Area, called the One Bay Area Plan, and these smart cities are cities that aren't planned by you and me or with our input. What they do is, you can show up to their visioning meetings. I'm sure you guys have had visioning meetings for your comprehensive plan on smart growth for smart cities in the 21st century based on sustainable development and your carbon footprint, by the way, which you can get a calculator that calculates how much your carbon footprint is. In other words, the damage you're doing to planet Mother Gaia Earth. And then you can offset your carbon footprint to save planet Mother Gaia Earth by donating money to the Nature Conservancy, the Audubon Society, who, by the way, I'm sure have their foot in your plans that are suggesting that people move into the cities and be softer and kinder to Mother Gaia, planet Earth. But you can download an app to calculate your carbon footprint, figure out what your carbon footprint is, your yearly carbon footprint is, to offset your carbon footprint. And usually what it does requires that you donate money to, like, Nature Conservancy, Audubon Society, or some watershed or something like that, that is eventually going to be taken out of the hands of a private person, handed over to the government, and never to be used, the tax dollars never to be used to improve your community, never to improve the schools or anything like that, but taken off your tax roll because it's now government or conservation easement, and so that nobody can touch it except for these radical enviros and your government and your mayor and it's left to them. Where you citizens, you good global citizens that are getting graded on what kind of a citizen you are, based on your carbon footprint, and if you're going to go along to get along with this plan, you get to stay in the cities and shop and walk and bike and take public transportation everywhere you go. Woohoo! 21st century.
And this is really about the elimination of private property, isn't it? I mean, it's
absolutely.
This is socialism, and well, not even in disguise. They're being
it's
open
flat
about
out.
it. But that's what socialism is about elimination of private property.
Right, and the United Nations said this. And I'm looking at my just so everybody knows, my PowerPoint presentation that I do throughout mostly the Western United States. What they said about land. This was at a United Nations conference on human settlements, and I'll paraphrase this. It's much, much longer. The quote is, I don't know if you can see it, but the quote is much, much longer. But I'm going to pare it down to where it says, land cannot be treated as an ordinary asset controlled by individuals. Private land ownership is also a principal instrument of accumulation and concentration of wealth, and therefore contributes to social injustice. What do we hear all the time about? Social justice this, social justice that. If unchecked, land may become a major obstacle in the planning and implementation of development schemes. What's your comprehensive plan? It's a development scheme. Social justice can only be achieved if land is used in the interest of society as a whole. This is about us becoming a global one body, a global citizenry, not we become subjects, not individuals based on natural law, where God or your creator gives you your rights, but where government comes in and gives you your rights and tells you where how you can live, where you can live, what you can drive, etc., etc.
So I have a question. Since this is obviously geared for the majority of people to move away from rural communities and being pushed into urban areas,
right?
What about our food source? What about our farmers? What about them?
Great question. Okay, so everyone should look this up. So let me just go back a little bit. At first, in 1992, we got Agenda 21 Sustainable Development. You can look up C-SPAN. You can type in these terms. C-SPAN, Nancy Pelosi, H. Conres 353, Agenda 21. You can see from C-SPAN itself, and I show this all the time in my video, Nancy Pelosi with Broomfield and a guy named Engel from New York, under George Herbert Walker Bush presidency, pushing H. Conres 353 in Capitol Hill. What was H. Conres 353? Agenda 21. They even called it. They even said, Nancy Pelosi, who's a congresswoman just up the road from me, where I am right now, she said, we must make the road to Rio a reality. What was the road to Rio? The very first Rio Earth Summit back in 1992, where they promulgated United Nations Agenda 21 Sustainable Development to the world. The year after that, President Clinton, he executive ordered 12852. So you can look up 12852. It's the President's Council on Sustainable Development. So you have one president, George Herbert Walker Bush, who soft-lawed Agenda 21 in the United States. And then you have Clinton come behind him and executive order Agenda 21, but they called it President's Council on Sustainable Development. Fast forward to 2012, that was Rio Plus 20. I went to that United Nations conference. In fact, I was there with Christopher Monckton and a few others. And at that Rio Earth Summit, they were going to transition their sustainable development goals that were soon to expire in the year 2015, into then what would be called the 2030 Agenda. So the Millennium Development Goals they didn't complete them all, but they didn't leave them behind. In fact, they pushed them to the future and said that we're going to complete all these goals by the year 2030. Okay, so now this is where I'd love for people to look up and to answer your question about food. The 2030 agenda was passed, signed, whatever you want to say, just before the Paris Agreement last year, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and I went to that conference too. And just before I went there, Obama, you can look up Obama White House 2030 Agenda Fact Sheet, and you can see that the Obama administration agreed to the United Nations 2030 Agenda. And so did businesses like Walmart. So you can look up business for 2030 agenda, and you can see how Walmart is playing a role in completing the Sustainable Development Goals that you will find under the 2030 agenda, which there are 169 targets. There's 17 goals, everything from poverty to saving planet Earth based on climate change, to education for sustainability, to saving, our environment and ecosystems, and also food for everybody, healthcare for everybody. So it's a one-size-fits-all plan for the 21st century, bred from Agenda 21, advanced through the 2030 agenda, and then there's now a new urban agenda on top of that, but we won't get into that. But what Walmart has been up to, and even Walmart, if you look up Walmart sustainability plans, if you look up Walmart sustainability or sustainable development business 2030, you'll go right to it. And Walmart is, how Walmarts are now superstores and they have food. Well, Walmart is now working, not only have they destroyed mom and pop shops, right? All over. They're coming into rural America and taking over mom and pop shops. They're also now getting in the business of food. Not just, packaged food, but now we're talking vegetables and fruits and all sorts of foods. Now their next goal to help save planet Earth under what the 2030 agenda is to work with farmers and ranchers, mostly farmers, small farmers, on food production. You know what the next step is. It's to take over the food production or have the food production. If you're going to work with Walmart, you're going to have to, and this is even in their documentation, you're going to have to help them fulfill on the Sustainable Development Goals. So, and they even have, they by the year 2017, and I'm just now starting to study this, and I'm so passionate about this because for Christians, this is, in my mind, so anti-Bible, so anti-God, that because the Agenda 21 states that the world is overpopulated. It even states that in this book. They say that the world is overpopulated by something like 6 billion people. In fact, the draft copy of this United Nations document, which I showed you, they are using this for policymakers. I showed you that guide. The draft copy stated that they must reduce the current population, and at that time, this was in 1994-ish, at that time was 6 billion people down to 1 billion people if we're going to save planet Earth. So what Walmart is up to by fulfilling on the Sustainable Development Goals and the 2030 Agenda is fulfilling on things like we are overpopulated. So how do you fix this population problem?
Vaccinate them.
Well, vaccination, yeah, that's one way to kill off people. Also, when you have control of the food.
Yeah. You encourage people not to have, you educate people so that they want to work instead of have a family. Vaccinations, also you control the food. You have people live within their basic needs. Who's defining basic needs?
Yeah.
They are.
You define somebody's basic needs. So what, you size them up and say, oh, you're 5'7" and you're 114 pounds, so therefore you should only have this much food? You require, and by the way, they are also, these technocrats are also working in the EU right now to replace livestock food, animal-based food with bugs, beetles, beetle protein, beetle flour. So, and what they're doing is saying that I interviewed a scientist named Dr. Istvan Marco when I was at the Paris conference. Just brilliant guy from Belgium. And we were having this great, fun conversation about technocracy and technocrats. And he said to me, which, you know, if you haven't read Patrick Wood's book, Technocracy Rising, it's a must. Go to our website, technocracy.news. You can find it there. By the way, Time Magazine just announced a new book coming out by a globalist. His name's Parag Khanna, called Technocracy in America, The Rise of the Info State. This is scariness. Yeah. So they're now admitting what Patrick Wood has been predicting and forecasting and saying, you guys, you know, wake up. This is technocracy. It's scientific dictatorship. This is why they say the science is settled when it comes to global warming. Don't worry your pretty heads. The science is settled. Just go along with us. And by the way, to help us save planet Earth, you need to live a sustainable lifestyle. What's a sustainable lifestyle? You get your food and products from Walmart, because Walmart has listed under the 2030 agenda what products are sustainable, what products come from sustainable manufacturers. In other words, recycled, reused, whatever. It's all just a maddening game. It's not about liberty and freedom. No. It's about control, monitoring, surveilling, reducing people's consumption, reducing people's lifestyle to not what you think is best, but what they think is best. Reducing the population to where it's maintainable according to what they have studied for planet Earth, so that we don't overshoot planet Earth, is what they call it. I mean, it's so crazy, you guys. Like, right now, my head is spinning, just going, is my mouth talking? Am I thinking? Or is this all just like gibberish? And it feels like gibberish, but it truly is their plan.
Well, sometimes these things, when you start to really dig down deep and you start looking at what this really means and who is in control.
Right.
And I think this happens to all of us who are currently awake. When we try to then warn others,
right?
We internally we feel like we're sounding like crazed, gibberish people, you know. But and to the sheeple out there, you know,
right.
That could very well be the case.
Right.
I always pray that at one point, what I'm trying to get across, some little seed of that will take root.
Right.
And that's my goal. Really.
You know what? That's what we all should be doing. Daniel Webster said, "Give them the means for detecting the wrong, and they will apply the remedy." He also said, "Keep them intelligent, and they will be vigilant." And that's what we're doing: educate, communicate, but do not hibernate. And it is. It's one person at a time. And how you and sometimes it might be groups. Luckily for shows like yours, you reach a lot more people than I'm able to do in an hour or two just talking to people on the street. But there's various ways that you can wake up the people around you. South Bend, Indiana, I can tell you for a fact, is being regionalized. I can tell you for a fact just by looking up a few articles: smart growth, complete streets, sustainable communities, comprehensive planning. You guys have all their jargon words working for you right now for this regional plan that is a blanket plan all across the United States. America2050.org is a great website to go to see how they've mapped out the future of America. And you will see that there are, on the West Coast, I guess over the West Coast for you guys, West Coast, there are three major regions, two in California, and then one on and the middle one is the San Francisco Bay Area, the One Bay Area plan where I live, where we've already been regionalized. Not by people we've elected, by the way, and it's not by people you guys have elected either. Right. It's by Council of Governments. Do you know your COG in your area? You must have a COG. It's a Council of Government. You didn't vote for them, but they are the ones who are accepting these federal funds to have these plans. I'll look it up and see if I can find a COG in your area really quickly. Indiana COG. and there are COGs, Council of Governments, all across America who are implementing Government, implementing these blanket, comprehensive, smart growth plans. I think you guys, you are CR COG is what I'm seeing. You have in Madison County. Where's Madison County?
That's south of
That's
us.
south,
Almost
southern
everything.
Indiana.
Yeah, we're northern.
Okay, so you guys are, all right, your COG is, here's your COG, I believe. Well, there's one called Center Region Council of Governments, and that is for, is a voluntary association of State College Borough and the townships of College, Ferguson, Half Moon, Harris, and Patton. Is that not your area? Am I in the wrong state? Am I in the wrong state?
No, there's, I know there's, is there a Harris County?
Let me see.
Familiar with.
All right, let me look at COG, South Bend, Indiana, and what comes up. But these meetings people need to start attending. Our COG was the Association of Bay Area Government, self-appointed, unelected. Sometimes they're elected, but for this body, this voluntary body, they're not elected. But they're the ones who are implementing these plans for you locally, Council of Government. So people have to start going to these meetings, asking them what they're all about. Where's Michiana?
Michiana is, well, northern Indiana, lower Michigan. They call her, it's sort of like Texarkana, except it's Michiana.
Okay, so you have a COG called MACOG, and you can look up MACOG, www.macog.com. And they're also, you are so already involved in this. I see another term that we see all the time, MPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization. And that is, you guys have that too. So I just looked up Council of Government, South Bend, Indiana. It looks like, here's what it says. MACOG is the designated Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MPO, for the South Bend urban area and the Elkhart-Goshen urban area. As an MPO, MACOG, in coordination with state departments of transportation and public transit or operators, is responsible for carrying out the transportation planning process for urbanized area. In addition to transportation planning, MACOG served as a broad-range planning forum for decision makers, local elected officials, and planning agencies.
So
what are
these
they?
are the people that have the puppet strings.
Absolutely.
Mayor Pete.
Absolutely. MACOG as a water quality planning entity. They're getting in every aspect of your lives. So I would say, let's see, and they're the ones who are just looking down. Let's see. MACOG is also the recipient of various grant funds related to the Clean Water Act, coordinated by the Indiana Department of, by the way, the Clean Water Act is a federal act.
Yeah.
Coordinated by the Indiana Department of Environmental Management. And then you can visit, it looks like you have a joint venture board too. So these are all blanket to what's happening here in the Bay Area. We've been regionalized. What does that mean? We have 101 cities, 9 counties. All of those city and county borders are disappearing. Why? Because we're a region. We should act like a region where we share resources, where all of our comprehensive plans in those 101 cities looks the same. So if we're all the same, then why do we need to have all these local, expensive elections? Why do we need to have a mayor in San Carlos if the next town up, which is Belmont, has exactly the same features, has exactly the same transportation plans, the same schools, the same, the same shops, the same everything? Why do we need a Belmont? Why don't we just call ourselves the One Bay Area? There's a video that, and I can send you some of these links. All this sounds unbelievable until you actually hear in their own words them talking about this. A group called Joint Venture Silicon Valley in 2013 had laid to rest all of our concerns that it would be years and years before people would start hearing about regions. But and what happens in regions where, and Hitler did this, by the way, where they start dissolving borders and city borders. Now going back really quickly to that America2050.org map where I said there are three, there was the San Francisco One Bay Area Plan where I live. We already got regionalized in 2013 by these unelected, self-appointed bureaucracies, these cogs. In the lower region of Southern California, it overlaps into, guess what? Where does, yes. And then the Northern California, or the uppermost western region in the western United States is in Washington and Seattle and what? Overlapping into
Vancouver.
Canada.
Yeah.
And that's
Exactly.
what we want. It's North America. We're not going to be the United States anymore. We're not going to be Indiana and Michigan because we're pretty close to the
Well,
Michigan border.
doesn't that
It's
also-
North America.
Well, doesn't that also relate to the whole FEMA camp thing?
Well, that I haven't studied, but if you look at the Wildlands Project map, there are people who have suggested that there are, within the Wildlands Project map, which was a result of this biodiversity, the Convention on Biological Diversity, this 1,140-page biological cookbook, that they came up with the Wildland Project map, which shows that most of the map is red, especially in the western United States. Red representing that the biodiversity is so sensitive that we need to conserve land, and we need to conserve water, and we need to save species, and we need to introduce species. We need to reintroduce species like Canadian gray wolves or Mexican gray wolves, right? So we need to reintroduce to make planet Earth more biodiverse, because the disruption of human beings, our lifestyles, our up mobility, and wanting bigger homes and all of that is destroying, according to them, planet Earth. Planet Earth cannot handle all this construction and all these people. Poor planet Earth, right? So, so what they need us to do is move into higher density, condensed living situations and preserve the resources. So in the Wildlands Project map, you will see on the West Coast, for example, where it's black, surrounded by red and yellow, which is no human use or limited to no human use. But the black is where we live. The black matches the map on the America2050.org, all across the 11 major regions. And then you'll see pink in this Wildlands Project map, which is a result of the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity, this document, which this is the 2011 Policymakers Guide. So it is, they are using this still. So in the Wildlands Project map, it shows pink for tribal lands, and then there are some other areas that are designated for FEMA. And I don't talk much about FEMA. It's not an area that I've studied much, but I've definitely heard that there are FEMA camps, and we know that there are FEMA camps, but there are FEMA camps being set up. For what reason, I have not verified personally. One thing I like to do, and why I can speak so freely about all this stuff, is because not only have I gone to the conferences, I've gone to Fish and Wildlife meetings, I've studied their documents extensively, I've written about it, I've done movies about it, and I'm pretty sure that from my friends that I've heard that polar bears are on the rise. In fact, there's 30,000 polar bears or something like that, but I haven't seen it for myself. So unless I've seen it for myself, I'll say, yeah, I've heard that, but I can't verify it. But everything else I can definitely verify. And I can verify that South Bend, Indiana, if you guys don't stop this now, now's your time. I'm concerned about Trump. I'm concerned about him inserting Ryan Zinke as his Department of Interior. I don't think that Ryan Zinke understands what's happening in rural America, and I certainly can imagine that he would say something like United Nations Agenda 21 is a conspiracy theory. And that's not what we need in the federal government right now. We need an administration that is willing to do the research that you and I are doing, and the boldness that we are doing, the education and the communication and the no more hibernation, And, you know, it's not just a cush job anymore. There are people's lives who are on the line, who are, you know, people are trying to survive. Your food system, ranchers and farmers are being plowed over. No pun intended by that. But, you know, and if people love their local sustainable food, then you know what? You better start voting for rural America. Otherwise, you're going to be getting your food from a sustainable, a UN sustainable source like Walmart. And you will not know what's in your food.
Well,
Ever.
probably we do know that it's going to be loaded with GMO crap. But
Yeah.
that's another subject. But I will say this: we still have some holdouts with our Amish community,
Yeah.
and I'm very thankful for them. Just in the sheer fact that I can at least go to a source I know isn't using chemicals and isn't, you know, is natural, but is, you know, if you want to go with sustainable, how sustainable is that? When you have a culture that, you know, has been practicing agriculture in this
Although
area.
they are going after the Amish too. In fact,
they are.
in the neighboring county here in Elkhart County, the feds were going to come in and arrest the Amish for selling milk. And
Milk.
the Elkhart County sheriff threatened to arrest the feds if they came in, so he got them to back off. But
Yeah.
I think what we're going to need to do, we can't rely on Trump, because I don't think, one, we shouldn't rely on any president, because that's the role of presidents.
Yeah.
President
Or the federal government. You know, the federal government, 10 by 10 square miles and forts, and that's it.
Yeah.
Right.
To protect us. That's it. Everything else is up to us.
Right.
So, you know, sorry to interrupt you. Please, what were you?
No, yeah, I was just going to say what you said. It's the federal government is their role is supposed to be really limited. They're not supposed to be regulating our food, regulating what we do with our land. But we've let them do that, and so how we're going to, I think, fight this is, one, get the information out, and like you say, people need to start attending the meetings, finding out what's going on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know what? The reason why they've gotten away with what they've gotten away with is because we've been busy in life, putting food on our table. And it's now time to become statesmen, like heavily involved. I hear all the time that, how much time do we have, by the way?
Oh, we got plenty of time.
Yeah.
Okay. I hear all the time, oh, Debbie, you're so political. Are you kidding me? When every inch of our lives is going to be controlled by this thing called global warming, climate change, and sustainable development, how can you say that's political? It has nothing to do with politics. It has everything to do with, this is your life. And are you going to let someone tell you how you get to live your one shot on planet Earth? Or are you going to be someone who says, back off my children, back off my backyard? If that rain falling on my roof and I capture it because I want to use it later on to water my plants, that's my water. It's on my roof. Government, you can't tell me what I can and cannot do with the land, with my property, my private property. Another thing is, you know, I teach college every once in a while. My alma mater, which is a private Catholic college, full on for the sustainable development crap. In fact, they had a woman named Mary Evelyn Tucker from Yale come speak to the students, and I of course showed up, and of course I was making an upheaval about it. But what Mary Evelyn Tucker wanted the students to do, and the community, by the way, so right down the street, was to sign the United Nations Earth Charter, which would replace the U.S. Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. And are you guys in Ickley City? I'm most positive you must fall under.
Ickley City is. It's a young city, but.
Ickley is the International Council on Local Environmental Initiatives or Issues, Ickley, South Bend, and Indiana. And if you are an Ickley City member list, Ickley, yeah, you guys are. Okay, so you're an Ickley City, which means you signed according to what I'm reading here, you signed, okay, so Georgia, Illinois, where's Indiana? Okay, Bloomington, Muncie,
Muncie, yeah.
And South Bend. Y'all signed an MOU with ICLEI, and this is as of July. This post is of July 2013. So what does that mean? ICLEI is a United Nations non-government organization. It's also known as local authorities, but it's the United Nations, guys. And what ICLEI came in to do was create local governments for sustainability. And so they're acting locally. So think globally, act locally is their motto.
Yes.
And you hear that all the time, right? And what they designated themselves to do, and they're getting more and more into water and a whole bunch of other things, but was to count your greenhouse gases in your city to help you reduce your carbon footprint. And what do you do? And they had the software and everything, and you signed an MOU. But in the ICLEI charter, it says, and I think it's, I don't have it in front of me, it's in my big bag full of documents that when I go do presentations, I bring this book and climate change, the Council on, I've got a plethora of books, and I think it's, what makes my presentation so credible is because I'm like pulling straight from their books and reading straight from their books. So it's not like what Debbie said, it's what they said, and Debbie's just regurgitating it. But ICLEI was to help you count your greenhouse gases. Let me read this. Okay, so wait, I just saw something that caught my eye here. I'm looking at downtowncary.org, and all I did was type in South Bend, Indiana, and ICLEI, ICLEI. It says here in this blog or whatever, more and more American states, counties, and cities are discovering ICLEI's unconstitutional and subversive agenda and the direct ties that ICLEI maintains with the United Nations Agenda 21 and Miguel Gorbachev's Earth Charter. So this person has it right on. When you sign an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding with ICLEI, which your cities did, to help you count your greenhouse gases, you're also signing on to their charter. What does their charter say? What does ICLEI's charter say? I think it's like 1.7 is where it says in their charter. It's either 7 or 1.7, section 1.7 or section 7. I can't remember off the top of my head. But that you are also agreeing to the United Nations Earth Charter. Do you guys have any idea what's in the United Nations Earth Charter? Because if you don't, you're an ICLEI member, you've signed on, your government has signed on.
And we don't know anything about it. Yeah. None of us do.
I mean, it could be innocent, but I'm telling you, it's not innocent.
No, I know. That part I have down, but it's like, oh my gosh, it's incredible. All the stuff that you're digging, just off the bat like that. Right. We're never. It's all done hush hush.
Yeah. Well, and just like when Nancy Pelosi and that video I talked about earlier on C-SPAN with Nancy, announcing Agenda 21, it was October, check this out. It was a Friday night, October 2nd, 1992. The hour just happens to be just after 2100 hours. I do not think, so 9-something p.m., I think 9:12 p.m. on the East Coast. But that military time, that's 2100 hours, and they're, trying to pass Agenda 21. What were you doing on a Friday night, probably back on October 2nd, 1992, at 9:12 p.m.? Were you watching C-SPAN? Were you watching what they were trying to pass on a Friday night in Washington, D.C.? Probably not. Most people, like my parents, were probably, long work week, trying to put food on the table, and perhaps playing cards because they finally could, because tomorrow's Saturday and they could relax a little. Yeah. But not in Washington, D.C. You have to pass it in order to find out what's in it. Right. And Nancy Pelosi has proved that over and over and over again. Meanwhile, liberty and freedom is being stolen.
Right. And they tend to do that like on a Friday, like you say, or they'll do it around Christmas time like they did with the Federal Reserve Act and Did they push Obamacare? No, Obamacare wasn't at a holiday, but they've done several things like that. Where
I'm sure something was done, and that was not out in the out and out open under Obamacare. Well, they passed it without having read the 200,000 pages that would come, where no one would ever be an expert on Obamacare. No one.
You couldn't.
no.
It's impossible.
Yeah. Well, and there's one little thing I wanted to bring up, and actually you kind of touched on it a little bit. You said you brought up your alma mater. These they list 20 city university collaborations with the Metro Lab network, with more than 60 smart city projects in the next year, blah, blah, blah. Well, one of them is South Bend with the University of Notre Dame, which is, the main draw for our little town. Okay.
Sure. Okay, so I don't know. I'm just looking it up. I'm wondering if Notre Dame, Indiana, is part of John Kerry, Senator John Kerry's Second Nature network. Second Nature, no, I see a Second Nature daycare. But Second Nature, so first they have Common Core, right, to indoctrinate the children into sustainable development and into the green economy, into green living. I have a couple of children's books that are rather shocking. One is Rescue Mission Planet Earth, and a children's guide to Agenda 21. Of course, Al Gore, has his signature on this book, and in the section on population, because these people truly believe the Earth is overpopulated, and in the section of this children's book that talks about population, there's a quote by Paul Simon that says, every time, don't quote me on this, it's something about the Earth groans every time
a baby's born. That's
right?
the song lyrics.
Yeah,
That's,
yes. But every time the Earth registers another birth, something about register. Yeah, you get it. And then on the picture that's next to this quote is God looking down at storks delivering babies, and Adam and Eve are like, everybody looks perplexed. Like, where are all these children coming from? So we have Common Core that indoctrinates children. I have a third grade reader that I use in my presentation about Moody Judy. It's the Judy Moody family, and she's angry with her parents. It's a third grade reader. It was given to me by a teacher out of New Mexico who was helping me fight the Mexican wolf issue, and she thought Common Core, back then she thought Common Core was better than what they've got in New Mexico, and I was like, no, it's not. No. But now I think she's turned a corner. Now I think as a teacher she's starting to see the light. But she sent me this third grade reader, and it's a little story about Judy Moody. She's wearing a spotted owl t-shirt, no joke. She's yelling at her parents. Her dad is grinding coffee beans from the Amazon forest. So these coffee beans came from the Amazon forest, and she could hardly hear over her dad grinding these Amazon forest coffee beans. But her mom was wearing lipstick. So what's wrong with lipstick? It's fossil fuel, livestock byproducts, right? Bad. Then she's wearing a spotted owl t-shirt. Why? Because cutting down trees, spotted owls need the protection, supposedly, lie, but protection of these old growth forests. That's a lie, by the way. And we need shade to save planet Earth from global warming, which is why the mom giving Judy lunch in a paper bag was a bad thing. And to save water, she did not brush her teeth. I mean, this is in this third grade reader.
Oh.
So you've got that indoctrination going on in schools, but then when you get to college, you have John Kerry's indoctrination called Second Nature. Why Second Nature? Because radical environmentalism will become second nature to these people.
Yeah.
They will think nature first, human beings second, and that's the goal. So I was just looking up, and I don't see it. Doesn't mean that it's not there with the University of Notre Dame. But, oh, well, you know what? There is something here. There's something about a conference on second nature. But I don't want to waste your time looking that up. But here's why I'm just looking these things up while we're talking, is anybody can do what we're doing. And then it's our responsibility to educate others. Because without education and without communication, we all just might as well go home, put our legs up, watch Dancing with the Stars, and let them take and steal our freedom and liberty away. Unless we do something. Daniel Webster said, give them the means for detecting the wrong and they will apply the remedy. That to me says, educate yourself as much as you can and the answer will be there. And so showing up to these meetings that are put on by your COG, your MACOG, I think is what we called it, going to those meetings, it's going to take some work. It's going to take time out of your daily life. But I hear this saying and I love it. I would rather live a day on my, how's this said? I would rather die on my feet than live a day on my knees. I'd rather die fighting than live as a slave, in other words. And that's where we're heading under this system, because you and I are not voting for any of this. And I guarantee when people start to see that, hey, wait, they're going to go after my car, that is your freedom of mobility that you were talking about earlier.
Right.
Yes.
Well, we need to wrap up here, Debbie, but I would guess this whole, guess as far as how to summarize this is this: the smart cities, the sustainable development. What's that?
Are dumb.
Are dumb, yeah. So anything smart is really dumb. But it's about controlling the population, taking away property, and then even reducing the population. So what I found amazing is one of these articles with the smart, it might have been off the website from the government, the White House, is none of the smart cities are supposed to monitor our health or do something with that. And we know if they think that there's too many of us, can we trust all this with the smart cities with our health? So it's not what they're billing it to be. It's not going to help us out. It's actually to harm us.
And we should task these people who are pushing this. You live that way. You check it out first, and then come if it works and if it's a good thing, then hey, maybe we can try it on. But these guys are just going off of what the United Nations is saying, how we need to be living in the 21st century. And if you look back and you research these people, they all have communistic personalities to them.
Yeah.
Dictatorial personalities. And something that I would love to leave people with is the smartphone, right? If you go to my former boss is Eric Schmidt of Google, and he still says this to this day, that someday all you're going to need is your cell phone for your smartphone. For things even like Steve, like you said about your health, right? That he is quoted in. I've seen a video of Eric in a recent conference called Millikan Global something. It's some Millikan. It was done in LA. The least expensive price to get into, or donation is what they call it, to get into this conference was $12,500. The most expensive, $25,000. Who's going to go to that conference? They had thousands and thousands of people going. Not people like you and me, but Bill Gates, Eric Schmidt, movie stars, Tom Hanks, people who could afford to go. And you find out the most fascinating things. It's a conference on the future. Our future. The future we're going into, whether it's robotics, technocracy, whatever, healthcare. What Eric Schmidt has said over and over again is this is all you'll need. I sit in this chair a lot. I do a lot of research deep into the night, hours, thousands of hours, and I got a bad back as a result. So I was getting my back worked on by a Bowen therapist in the area, And he asked why. He said, probing, why is your back so bad? Well, I do a lot of research. Oh, is it for work? No, it's not for work. I do it as a passion. And he said, so what are you studying? What are you researching? I said, have you ever heard of Agenda 21? No. Have you ever heard of the United Nations? Of course. I'm a survivalist, is what he said. And then he says to me, I said, well, it's the United Nations that's trying to control our lives. And he brought up the Tower of Babel, the story in the Bible, and he said, look what they did. It was Nimrod who used advanced technology to try and build this tower to get to God, right? And I'm like, and the fact that he used the word technology. Now, prior to that, Patrick Wood was telling me, Debbie, it's not Agenda 21. That's not the end game. And I'm like, yes, it is. I've done all the research. Of course it is. I can't be wrong. It is. And he says, no, it's technocracy. It's a scientific dictatorship based on technology that's the end game. And I said, okay, so all of a sudden, I started thinking, okay, so what happens in the 22nd century? What happens in the 23rd century? Agenda 21 is a stepping stone, just like the new urban agenda is a stepping stone for what? And then, okay, so back to the Bowen therapist. He said to me, Debbie, he said, if you look around, and this was just after the Tower of Babel, I said, how did you know about technology being used to control people in the future? He said, well, if you look around, he said, you see people bowing their heads to the God of technology. And I was like, whoa, like everywhere you go, people are bowing. And then he brought up, he said, if you look at, you'll go to a restaurant and you think a family is praying, and then you see all the cell phones out on the table. And that hit me like you wouldn't believe. So putting together that, no, Agenda 21 isn't the end game, because that's a stepping stone, what happens in the 22nd century. And this piece of device, what Eric Schmidt said in this April conference in Los Angeles, this Millikan conference, was one day, you won't even need to think. Your phone will be able to tell you when you're not feeling well and call the doctor for you. And I'm like, whoa. But if you think about it, they cannot part with this cell phone. It's going to be used for a cashless society. It's going to be used to make you a smarter person. It's going to be used to run your business. It's going to be used to call your car, your driverless car. It's going to be used for all those things. You don't need the mark of the beast. You just need your cell phone.
Yeah. And I'm sure they're going to implant that at some point. They're going to talk about people, just have the chip in. It's going to be a lot easier than carrying that around.
Yeah, well, I won't have one.
No.
I won't either.
Well, thank you for taking the time tonight, Debbie, to inform our audience, inform us of what's going on.
Yes.
It's much more than what it really appears when you hear this, and it's good to have somebody that's done the research like you have. So we're going to put your some of these links that you sent us, and we'll have it on our website. We'll have it on the YouTube channel, and we'll put some of this up on the screen so people can see it too. So.
Yes.
Get involved, educate, communicate, do not hibernate. If we hibernate, you might as well just say, welcome smart cities.
Yeah.
Which are dumb.
Which are dumb. If you give freedom and liberty, you're dumb. Yeah. Bye, guys. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas
to you, too.
All right. See you next time on The Liberty Show, everybody. Take care. Bye.